Okay, welcome. Today we're talking about something that you've probably never heard before because no one has ever talked about it this way for you. And if you're a coach, you're a consultant, you sell anything online, there are literally going to be like 3 things you're typically looking for. You want more clients and you want them to pay you well, right? The second thing is you want to be more visible. You want people to actually know you. The third thing is you want to have a reputation. The reputation means that people not just know you, but people who don't even know you care about you. That is visibility at the highest level. And if you want these 3 things, I want you to listen and watch this video till the end, because you're going to walk away with some key shifts. Because I don't want to say a strategy, because strategy is contextual. Like, you're going to walk away with 3 key shifts that if you start using today in your business, it's literally going to explode your business almost overnight. Not overnight, almost overnight. Okay. And these strategies are things that I've learned from the best marketer in the entire world throughout human history. This person guaranteed the best. For the last 2,000 years, people have bought into his vision over and over again. He's not on social media, but he's always trending. He doesn't have a website, but thousands of affiliates have websites all about him. People meet every single week to talk about him and his ideologies. This guy is fantastic. And I'm talking about Jesus. And please, before you log out, you don't have to be a Christian to actually use the strategy. Yeah, you may love him, you may hate him, but you could definitely learn from him. Doesn't matter whether you like him or you don't like him, you could learn from him. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down some of his strategies to you that you could start using immediately. Okay, but before we go there, just in case you don't know me, my name is Lolaoyafemi, and I sell online using content, using stories, and using science. So if you're here for the first time, I'm going to be showing you how to sell using your content, how to sell with your stories, and how to sell by understanding the way human beings actually behave, biopsychology, and the science of buying. So if you're excited about all those things, say yay, because I'm super excited. So let's go right into it. Now, one of the things that happened in Jesus' days is that people were always shocked by how much he was different. He was always, doing miracles. He was always speaking in public places. He would have thousands of people meet him. And it was so shocking because he did not come from a traditionally rich background. He was a carpenter's son. His parents had to flee because they were afraid that he was going to get killed. His parents were not rich. They were poor people. And he had no religious background. Yet, this guy will regularly have meetings with thousands of people. And mind you, thousands of people, there was no social media. People will stay with him for days without food. This guy had people who were willing to die for him then, and who are willing to even die for him now. This guy was so popular that he became a problem. Now, just in case you don't know anything about Christian history, I want to just share this thing with you. At that time, at the time when Jesus came up, there had been so many other people who had come up and say they were the Messiah, they were the sons of God. And none of them lasted that time. None of them still has clout till today, till tomorrow even. So there's something to learn from this, even if you're not a Christian. Now let's go right into it. The first thing is something called audacity. And I want you to note, listen here. I did not say courage. I said audacity. There's a big difference. Courage is when you're willing to do the thing that you have to do, right? You have to do this thing, so you're going to do it. Oh, I have to do a cold email. I'm going to do it. So I have the courage to do it. Audacity is when you're willing to do things that no one else is willing to do, regardless of the consequences. So let me use my cold email example. Courage, I want to sign a client, I send 10 cold emails. That's courage. It takes courage to send a cold email. Audacity is, I want to sign a client and I send 10 cold emails, but not just to anybody, but to the heads or the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies alone. To the head or the CEOs of Meta, Amazon, Twitter, Tesla, all the big, that is audacity. Because most people will never, ever, ever, ever think of doing something like that because they feel like they are never going to get there. Audacity is when you decide that I'm going to do things that no one else can do. I'm going to go at a pace no one else can go. That's audacity. And when Jesus came, Jesus was all about audacity. Other people were comfortable gathering 10 people, 12 people and talking to them. He wanted to gather thousands of people. And he gathered thousands of people. Other people were okay with just having, a small group of people believing in them. He said, I am the Son of God. Like, do you know the audacity it takes for someone to say, I'm the Son of God? I'm not talking about weird people now who say, I'm, blah, blah, blah. But then there was a lot of audacity because that could cost you your life. Now, if you go through any Bible story or anybody who is a self-made millionaire or a self-made business, you'd realize that there are places in their life that it wasn't just courage. It was audacity. The audacity to take a loan knowing that if you fail this loan, you're going to go to jail. The audacity to be able to start a business, even though everyone is telling you that this business is going to flop. It takes audacity to actually do stuff. So I want you to start thinking, over the last 3 months, have I made any audacious moves in my business? Have I made any audacious moves in my marketing? And I'm not saying, have you made any courageous moves? Have I made anything that is so shocking that I was even scared for myself when I did it? So, and one thing just strikes my mind just as I'm talking about this, and this is something that people talk about all the time. People say stuff like unpopular opinion, and they share something that's popular. People say things like, oh, I'm just a rebel, blah, 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 but they're sounding the exact same way their coach is sounding. Being a rebel doesn't mean you're using the colors red and white. Being a rebel doesn't mean you're having tattoos over that. That's not what it means. It means that you take a stand regardless of what's going to happen. And that's audacity. Everyone who grows an audience has audacity. Everyone who's actually doing something big has audacity. And this is the number one trait of marketing like Jesus. You have to make sure that your marketing is audacious. You're not just making promises like everyone else. You're not just selling things like everyone else. You're going over and you're going beyond, and you're putting your money where your mouth is. I want to say your mouth where your money is. You're putting your money where your mouth is. That's the first thing. And that is the first key. So I want you to start thinking to yourself, what audacious move have I taken in the last 3 months? And write that in the comments, like, what audacious move have you taken in the last 3 months? This could mean like maybe running an ad if no one in your audience is doing ads. This could be like starting a group. This could be raising your prices. What thing was so audacious that I was so scared when I did it, but I did it anyway because I knew that this was going to grow my business? And just put that in comment. Let me see it. I want to see your audacious moves. Now this brings me to the second thing. The second thing, and this is something you'd notice, is people were willing to die for Jesus. Now, people are not just willing to die for you because you have audacity. People are always willing to die for you when you have something more. People were always willing to die for Jesus. And why was that? It wasn't just because he said, I'm the Son of God. No, it was actually because, bigger than that, Jesus had a trait that people want in the world, even now more than ever. And I'll give you a simple story to just tell you what happened. So Jesus and his disciples, they were going to a small town called Nain. And in that town, there was a widow. And in those days, if a woman didn't have a husband or a son or a father that could take care of her, she was literally going to be poor and destitute. There was like no middle ground. Women didn't really have jobs then. You had to have a protector, even if you had money. And so Jesus was going with his disciples to this small town called Nain. And just as they enter into the town, they see a burial. A young man is carried. People are mourning. His mother is in front. She's weeping her eyes out. Her baby's dead. She had no other children. This was her only son. So when the guy died, what happened was she had lost all hope. Her son was dead, and, that was the end. So as she was mourning, she wasn't just mourning the death of her son. She was mourning because she was going to suffer now that her son was dead. And Jesus walks into that place, and it's none of his business. And I want you to know, it's none of Jesus's business. He's living his life. He's walking with his disciples. He probably wants to go preach somewhere where there will be thousands of people. And he sees this woman, and immediately, the Bible says, he had compassion on her. And that's the second thing. Is your marketing compassionate? He saw this woman and he felt her pain. And he stopped everything he was doing to go meet this woman and speak to her and raise her son from the dead. Now, I want to ask you a question. When last did you feel any business cared about you that much? Cared about you to break rules just for you? Cared about you enough to make sure that you actually are taken care of? Businesses hardly do that. In fact, we don't even have good customer service nowadays. Let's not even talk about caring enough or having compassion. That's one trait that once you tweak it and you tie it into your marketing, it just changes things. Do you have compassion for the people you work with? Because compassion is the strategy. And every single business that becomes a $1 billion, $1 million business, and I know the difference between a million and a billion is a lot, but every single $1 billion business is built from compassion. No matter how you think about it, even luxury brands. Now, and I'll explain what I mean. Amazon, for example, Amazon's business model shows that they're compassionate about authors who don't have, a large audience to be able to sell their books. A lot of authors who would ordinarily not sell a lot of books became bestsellers because they're on Amazon, right? Amazon is passionate about helping authors. Amazon is compassionate to small businesses who don't have distribution, who don't have shipping, who don't have all those things. Now, I know at this point, this was someone like, but Amazon does these wrong things. Of course, Amazon is not Jesus. But the main point I'm trying to make is that every single business that actually works is tied based on compassion to a particular customer. Even luxury brands. Like, why Chanel? Because they're compassionate on people who have money and want to show the world they have money. Now, again, compassion doesn't necessarily mean the person is poor and suffering and dying, but it just means that you care enough to feel this person's pain like it's your pain. And I'll give you an example of something that is luxury and still ties with compassion. So let's say someone is going for a meeting, and this meeting, they're going to meet like a couple of billionaires, and they don't have, maybe they just have a few $1,000s, or maybe they have like $500,000. They're not really big yet, but they want to make a mark at this meeting. They don't want to get to this meeting and feel like they're less than everyone else. They want to get to this meeting and everyone actually feels like they're a big deal. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to buy Chanel. They're going to buy, if they could buy a Rolls Royce, they will buy a Rolls Royce. Or if they could rent one, they will rent one. They're going to get things that are luxury. And that luxury thing, it helps that need that they have. So I want you to ask yourself, is the offers I make, the things I sell, the way I do my marketing, is it obvious that I'm compassionate to the people who follow me? Is it obvious that I can feel the pain of people who are following me? Can I really put myself in their shoes? Because compassion is the strategy. Compassion is what brings the biggest parts of the strategy. So I want you to start thinking about, so this second thing, in what way over the last 3 months have you shown compassion in your marketing? Do you feel the pain of your ideal clients? Do you feel the pain of your audience? Do you know what they're thinking about? Are you bothered about it? Because compassion is the strategy. I remember in 2022, beginning of 2022, there was kind of like a mini recession. And again, depending on what party you follow, the recession is either on or off. But it was kind of a mini recession, and a lot of people could not afford coaching programs. And when I noticed that a lot of people wanted to join my programs and they couldn't afford it, and I didn't want to bring down the price, I decided to create a new pricing strategy to just work for them. I said, okay, pay this percentage up front, and then as you make money, you could pay the rest. And that was fantastic because I had tons of people come in because that made sense for them. Why did I do that pricing strategy? It was based out of compassion. If I wasn't compassionate on my audience, I will not do it. And again, compassion doesn't mean you look down on people. It just means you can feel what they feel. You know where the shoe pinches, which brings me to my third point. And if you read the Bible, and even if you don't read the Bible, you will notice that a lot of times when people talk about Jesus in different ways. So people say he's a healer. People say he's a provider. People say he's the Son of God. People say he's this, he's that. Depending on where you come from, you have a different ideology about Jesus. Why is that? Why is it that everyone doesn't have the same thought about Jesus? It's really simple. It's because all of us are in different social bubbles. And Jesus was one of the few people in the Bible who went around all the social bubbles. And let me explain what a social bubble is. A social bubble is a group of people who share the same ideology. If you have any label, you are in a social bubble. So for example, if you say I'm a Christian, guess which social bubble you're in? You're in the Christian social bubble. If you say I'm an online business coach, you are in the online business space social bubble. Every single place. And even in bubbles, we have sub bubbles. So if you're on YouTube, we have general YouTube as a bubble. Right? If they say all YouTubers come to one side, you come there. If we say, oh, personal development YouTubers, that's a different bubble. If we say, oh, YouTubers who follow so and so, that's a different bubble. One of the things that Jesus did was he went around all the bubbles. So in his times, there were tax collectors. Jesus was a friend to those tax collectors. In his time, women were not really allowed to speak to people. Jesus was a friend to a lot of women. In his time, there were religious leaders. Jesus had friends who were religious leaders. Jesus had friends in every sector. And that was what made him popular. One mistake people make when they come online, people tell you dominate your niche. But when you dominate only your niche, you don't become popular outside your niche. So it means that if you decide I want to switch from personal development to maybe business, it's going to be a harder pivot than someone who, yes, I'm in the personal development niche, but I'm still going for podcasts in the business niche. Oh, I'm in the women entrepreneurship niche, but I'm still going for podcasts in personal development. I'm still going for podcasts in fitness. I'm still going for podcasts with mom podcasts. Why? Because every single time society will teach you to stay in your bubble. It will tell you we all do things this way. And because you're staying in your bubble, you're never going to be popular outside your bubble. There's one idea that I always share with people, especially with women and people of color. When people tell me like, should I only work with women? Or should I only work with Black women? Or should I only work with Hispanic women? I always tell them the same thing. I tell them like, white men don't think should I only work with white men? Right? You're on Facebook. Facebook is not owned by a Black woman it's not even owned by a woman, right? Every single time I find that minority groups tend to say, we only want to work with ourselves. So you have people who say, I only want to work with Black Americans. I only want to work with, so-and-so people. And because we're putting ourselves, we're now deliberately creating a bubble for ourselves. What happens is we're missing out on these other opportunities that are all there for us. So I will recommend that if you really want to grow your business, you want to look at outside this, my primary bubble, what other bubbles can I dominate? And let's sit down. I want you to take that in for a moment. Outside your primary bubble, what's your primary bubble? Write it down. Put it in the comment. I want to see it. What other bubbles can you dominate? What other bubbles can you get into? What other bubbles can you show up in? And other bubbles could have podcasts. Other bubbles could have programs. Other bubbles could have stuff. I'm not saying like, oh, if you are a dating coach, you should go and start doing a fitness program. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you're a dating coach, you can go on personal development podcasts. You can go on business podcasts. There's so many ways. You could go on business podcasts and talk about dating your business partner. What does that look like? Right? You could go on personal development podcasts and talk about how the way you relate, the way you grow personally, one of the ways you know if you're growing personally is the way you date, right? Or your relationship status. You could go on any podcast, any YouTube live, anything, and tie whatever that new bubble is to your topic. What you're going to do at that, as you do that, is number one, you're expanding your bubble. Number two, you're entering into other bubbles and you're getting your influence. And number three, and I think this is the most important, is you're allowing yourself to experience life through different facets. And that is exactly how you're going to grow your business. So these are like 3 things for marketing like Jesus. If you want me to do, there are 2 other things that I did not share. If you want me to do that, tell me in the comments and I will do a special video for you. By the way, I will not close this without telling you Story Selling Sprint is starting soon. It's 30 days of telling stories to sell. And when I mean sell anything. Sell your ideas, sell your mission, and most importantly, sell things that actually get you paid. So if you're in, just click the link below and you will get all the details. Have a fantastic day. Talk to you soon. Take care.